national, we are committed and have a responsibility and duty to make sure that indeed everyone has access to water. Now, this gathering coincides with the 9th World Water Forum that is currently taking place in Dakar, Senegal. And that gathering in Senegal is working on a theme, water security for peace and development. And as a country, we are well represented there. We have a full delegation that is in attendance. And we will be looking forward to receiving a comprehensive report in terms of the proceedings and outcomes from that conference. Now, this year, the World Water Day is celebrated under the theme, making the invisible visible. That is what they are dealing with in Dakar. This year's topic refers to a very important subject of water resource management, which is groundwater. Groundwater is by and large invisible, but its impact is visible everywhere. And that is the intention. Groundwater is by and large out of sight. It is under our feet, and it's a hidden treasure, but it enriches our lives once it has been drawn and put to use. As climate change gets worse, groundwater will become more and more critical. As a department and as a country, we are committed to exploring groundwater as an alternative water source to ensure water security to communities in communities affected by water supply challenges in our country. It is for this reason that we have a fully fledged strategy on groundwater, and on Monday next week, on the 28th, we will be dealing with the side of this strategy around operationalizing it. In other words, we will be looking at what are the programs that we need to have to operationalize our strategy so that we approach this matter in a highly organized and scientific way. And as such, the strategy deals with a lot of things, including the policy framework, together with the legislative framework that should apply, and then human resource, and even the issue of institutionalizing our approach to groundwater. South Africa is a water-scarce country, and we want to say this more and more, louder and louder, so that every one of us in the country understands and come to terms with this fact that we are a water-scarce country. Ranking at the 30th driest country in the world, and we receive summer rainfall in November, between November and March, with the exception of the Western Cape as parts of Eastern and Northern Cape, which receive their water between May and August. That receive winter rain, they receive winter rainfall in those areas. Now, since the surface water resource are fully allocated, our water supply needs to be supplemented by international transfers, and in this case, from Lesotho Highland Water Transfer Scheme, so that we augment our water as a water-scarce country, so that we increase security of water in South Africa. And in this regard, we still have to explore other possibilities going forward, so that we have a reasonable, I would say, horizon in terms of water security all the time. Ideally, from where I sit, I would like a horizon of between 15 and 20 years, so that we plan all the time when we envisage or foresee danger, and we must identify it and deal with it always within a horizon of 20 years, 15 and 20 years, so that we are able to plan ahead. Now, we are approaching the second phase of that scheme, Lesotho Highland Water Transfer Scheme, and we are happy about the developments up to now. In order to meet the increase in water demand, we've gradually increased groundwater use through Groundwater Development Scheme. There is an increasing trend for individual community members to drill boreholes for self-supply in response to water supply challenges. The rapid rate at which this is happening shows how resilient and critical the groundwater resource is. Groundwater plays an important role in ensuring that there is water security in South Africa, including contributing approximately up to 13% of the national water supply, in addition to providing up to 100 water supply to some areas. And therefore you can see from this that there is a huge benefit by different communities in different parts of the world, of the country, from groundwater, and therefore we need to be much more highly organized in this particular aspect of our water resource. It is thus a resource of strategic importance. Climate change and increased demand for water across multiple sectors have already impacted surface water storage through Southern Africa. Studies predict that by 2025, this region, Southern Africa, will have insufficient water supplies to meet human and ecosystems needs, resulting in increased competition for scarce resource, constrained economic development, and declining human health. And these are quite alarming words to mention, and therefore need to be prevented at all costs. And that's why I'm talking here about phase 2 of the Lesotho Highlands Water Transfer Scheme, and phase 2 thereof. And again, the need to explore more possibilities in terms of water security in the country, of which groundwater is part, but also any other possibility from outside our country. The Water Research Commission provides groundwater research and knowledge to the country by translating needs into research ideas, transferring research results, and disseminating knowledge. Over the years, the Water Research Commission has continued to strive to become a global knowledge and South Africa's premier knowledge hub across the innovation value chain. In addition, the Water Research Commission has developed knowledge in this field together with the Council for Geological Science, Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, Wits and Wits University, Stellenbosch University, but of course with also DWS laboratories and other role players in this regard. We have a formidable institutional arrangements in the country, and we rely on them, and we thank them for their continued work and contribution in this regard. A major challenge that needs to be addressed is the translation of science into policy. and thus to make the technical output of the project have an impact at both national and regional level. Developing resilient agricultural livelihoods and sustainable management of water resources are vital to achieve most of the development goals as outlined in the United Nations 2030 Sustainable Development Goals and the the Africa Agenda 2063. Today, however, groundwater is acknowledged as a national asset and an integral part of South Africa's water resources. Groundwater has played a major role in reducing the backlog for domestic water supply. As the department, we have acknowledged that our country's water resources are on the decline in both quality and quantity. We are not the only country facing the water quality challenges. The World Economic Forum Global Risk Report of 2019 reports that water environmental concerns are more prevalent than ever. The water quality management policies and strategies in South Africa 2017 identifies pollution from wastewater treatment plants and mine operations as main sources of pollution in South Africa. Policies and standards to deal with pollution in these sectors are generally in place, and challenges facing the country are not due to policy gap, but rather non-compliance to existing policies and standards. It is for this reason that even now we want to take this opportunity and issue a warning to polluters that stop polluting. But that is not enough. We are up for it. We are up to them. And we know what to do. And they know what we are supposed to do and what they are supposed to do. It is for this reason that we want to indicate we will be upping our game on compliance issues, including penalties on polluters. So it's two things that we're saying to them. Stop polluting. Where you fail to comply, you will be dealt with via penalties. The department is fast-tracking the activities of the anti-pollution task team to deal with all water quality pollution problems in the country, be it the main rivers, including the Vaal River system, but all other rivers in the country. This is where we're going. The objectives of the task team are to coordinate and integrate efforts for management of water resource quality in South Africa. It will provide high-level guidance to ensure protection of water resource and identify remedies to mitigate pollution impacts. Compliance, monitoring, and enforcement is one of the key tasks of the anti-pollution task team in our country. The main source of pollution comes from domestic wastewater treatment, which includes the leaking or malfunctioning of wastewater collection systems designed to transport wastewater to our wastewater treatment works, as well as the works themselves, and from mining operations. Currently, there are 1,013 municipal wastewater treatment works in the country, and of these, 544, that is 54%, have authorizations in place, with 23, which is about 236, that are unauthorized or operate under expired authorizations. This department is progressing with verification of the authorization status of a further 141 works, which is the remaining 14%. Again, on Monday, on the 28th of this month, we will be sitting for the whole day, and one of the main focus areas will be getting details on this matter, progress that is being made by the task team, looking at all points of pollution in the country, and actually also looking at our practical programs that seek to address these matters. We will be taking progress in detail on this matter. Since 2014, the department has investigated a total of 598 cases related to wastewater treatment works, which were mainly as a result of complaints received from the public. Enforcement actions were taken by DWS against these municipalities, which were found to have violated the water legislation in relation to wastewater treatment works. Enforcement actions taken including administrative, civil, and criminal cases. And I'm happy once more to say we will be taking details on all these matters in terms of our actions going forward to curtail this particular challenge that we have in the country of polluters and pollution. Ladies and gentlemen, members of the media, as we gather today, we must not forget that during the past 2 years, COVID-19 tested the strength of our water and sanitation services delivery model in a great way. COVID-19 has not only affected the physical health of our country, but it has exposed the big challenge we are facing as a nation in the form of inequality, economic vulnerability, and the lack of access to water services and poor maintenance of our water infrastructure, and including our sanitation infrastructure. It also taught us the importance of cooperation between the public and private sector, especially during challenges and uncertain times. We all witness how the private sector and civil society join hands with the public sector to ensure the safety and well-being of our members of society, including access to water for the unserved communities. This is the social compact we need to strengthen as per the call of the President of the Republic. We have commenced with the partnering with the private sector, with the Northern Cape being our pilot province in this regard. We will be soon going there to launch the public-private partnership on water and sanitation, which we have been working on since our visit to the Northern Cape earlier this year. On the National Water and Sanitation Summit, which we recently held on 18 to 19 February this year, of course, it was a successful summit, a very successful one with 8 themes. And they are as follows. 1, water resource management and climate change. The second theme was financial sustainability of the water and sanitation sector. The third theme was water shortages, delivery mechanisms by municipalities and water boards. The fourth theme was integrated sanitation plan. Fifth theme was water and sanitation infrastructure. Number 6 was managing pollution and water quality. Number 7 was transboundary and international water partnerships. And the last one was legislative framework. On the 28th, we will be receiving a comprehensive implementation plan of all the outcomes on all the 8 themes. And of course, the outcomes themselves were of very high quality, and we were very impressed with the participation and the quality of the outcomes of the deliberations in that 2-day summit. And therefore, we've now compiled all the information, and we will be receiving that presentation, so that from there onwards, we implement all the outcomes in this regard. Of course, in many areas, we have already started doing so, and that is underway. So discussions will therefore be held on these themes on that day, and will deal with timelines, and of course all identified stakeholders that we will be working with on these resolutions will be activated once more. Now, on the implementation side, we're working on mechanisms to implement the proposed actions, as I've said. And overall, one of the highlights of our summit was that we are focusing on our weakness over time of delivering water to households and communities, which has become an outcry all over. But that goes hand in hand with focusing our attention on water and sanitation infrastructure, which very often leads on disruptions of water delivery to our communities, such that it has become the issue in our country more than any other. And we are focusing on this matter via a number of strategies, including partnerships. Now, in conclusion, as we work towards the achievement of targets set out in the NDP Vision of 2030 and the SDGs 2030 of affordable and reliable access to sufficient water and hygienic sanitation for socio-economic growth and well-being, with due regard to the environment, we remain resolute as a department, and we want South Africa to know that we are hard at work. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Minister. I would like to welcome the Director General of the Department, Dr. Sean Phillips.
And there you have it, the Minister of Water and Sanitation, Senzo Mchunu, using World Water Day themed Making the Invisible Visible to give an update on the South African water strategies and policies and the country's water position. This year's topic focusing on the issue of the management of groundwater, reminding us that South Africa is a water-scarce country, ranking as the 30th driest country in the world, but that the country is working on a 20-year plan. He says he mentions the 9th World Water Forum that is currently underway in Dakar, Senegal. He says the country is well represented there by DWS officials. Also mentions the Lesotho Highlands Water Transfer Scheme.
focus in the past. And therefore, it has left much doubt in terms of our ability and willingness to deal decisively with issues in the Vaal River system. Let me indicate that one, we have appointed Groundwater, as you say, Groundwater Board to be our implementing agent with regard to the cleanup in the Vaal River project. I must report here that we are monitoring everything that they are doing there. One, we have assigned Deputy Minister David Mahlobo and to partner with Gauteng MEC Lebogang Maile to be the political coordinators of the steering committee there, which includes or involves all the stakeholders. That's number one. Number two, we have a technical team that is led by Groundwater. Number three, we have our own person that reports directly to myself as minister on a weekly basis, who is an civil engineer who briefs us every week in terms of progress that is being made or not made. I must say work is underway with regard to the pumps there. At some point, we went there ourselves to look at what had been done up to then in terms of refurbishing the pumps there. And we're soon going to start with the wastewater treatment plants. But by and large, they have dealt with opening the pipes that were blockaded. In other words, something that they call unblocking, together with pumps, that is pump stations, and that will lead to wastewater treatment plants and water treatment plants, so that the whole system it then becomes open. I'm aware they are making progress after a while of not making progress in the past. Now, we are following on the matter, and we'll be receiving another comprehensive progress report on Monday next week. For now, we last week, as late as last week, there was a meeting which was with Mfuleni municipality and the new councillors, together with MEC and deputy ministers, to resolve a number of issues that had encroached on the project, and we are happy that all known problems have been resolved. That follows another meeting which I think was 1.5 months ago, which also resolved the fears by Mfuleni workers that they were being replaced and they would lose their jobs. And it's something that was attended to, that there's no such. Groundwater is expected as an implementing agent to bring some of their experts where there's no expertise locally, but they will be involved, and they will go on working there together with those that will be brought in. So there's no need for anyone to have anxiety and then cause a problem in that project. So overall, we are satisfied with the progress, but we are aware that there's a lot that needs to be done, and done with speed, because people, as you say, have been under siege in terms of sewage, and that is regrettable, but we're making progress, and we want to assure them that very soon that would be a thing of the past, and as we move on with progress in the Vaal River system cleanup. On what you're saying, the Vaal itself, at some point we did go there, and we did take a boat to look around, and indeed we saw what you're saying, including dying fish in some cases, and the walls of the dam. I mean, that is the as you go, you can see this both sides of the dam. That there is a lot of sludge that is getting deposited on the sides of the system. But those who know, particularly those who are briefing us, and the trip also told us that there's also quite a lot of this that has gone down to the ground, and therefore the final stage of cleanup there is not just on the infrastructure and underground pipes and cleanup of sewer from residential areas. It will also include cleaning up the floor of the dam and everywhere where there's been a deposit of sludge in that area. So the project itself is going to take some time for that reason, but our priority is to remove sewer from residential areas, and therefore that means doing everything that will enable us to do just that in terms of the infrastructure cleanup, including unblocking. And number two, there is the issue of supply of water and making our water supply very reliable, highly reliable. Now, you are aware that we have gone to all 9 provinces from last year up to early this year, and that during those work sessions of 3 days each in each provinces, we engaged and interacted with all the water authorities in the country. And there are 2 things or issues that were basically identified by municipalities themselves that are water authorities. One, it was their capacity to do the job of supplying water and doing it efficiently and reliably. The second was their own issues like resource as a problem. So on one hand, it is capacity to do this. This means the numbers of people who work on water and sanitation in each of these water authorities. It refers to their skills, not just the number, but even the skills of those that are there as we talk, which is very much wanting. But then, on the other hand, it refers it's finance to deal with that, or funds to do that. In order to address these 2 major issues in particular, we have said, one, let us work together. That is the local sphere, the provincial sphere, and the national sphere, and collapse the gaps that exist, and therefore leverage on the totality of capacity and skills that we have as a country, as opposed to relying on one municipality there and there who has no capacity, who has no funding to do this. That's the first thing. To cooperate. We have a TDM model in the country, and we have agreed that we will work as together as possible, without shifting blame and without pointing fingers at one another, because as a country, it is now time that we resolve all these problems. 2, we then have said we need to strengthen our resolve on partnerships, which I've referred to here. We are moving ahead with that. Partnerships with the private sector in particular, but amongst ourselves as the public sector, is extremely important one, to address the issue of capacity, but secondly, to address the issue of funding. And it is for this reason that we are happy that we are proceeding with this matter up to launching the first ever kind of provincially synergized partnership in the Northern Cape that will see us increasing our capacity and our funding capacity to deal with water supply to households, but also to the business with a high level of reliability. Now, we are going to go on all this because there are 4 provinces in the main that are ahead of all others in this regard. And we'll be going to the second one, and thereafter we'll be launching this issue of partnerships at a national level. In other words, pointing to the level by which our partnerships will have been institutionalized and therefore answering the call of the president on and the importance of social compacts in this regard. We also can point at 2 examples. One is in Mokopane, where I think a month and a half ago, that municipality, Mkgalakwena, signed a partnership with a private company, a mining company, which will see them building a wastewater treatment plant there and operate it and maintain it for 3 years. And after that, they will then hand it over. We are seeing more and more other private sector companies interested in this type of a model and others. And it is some of these that will be launching in the Northern Cape and elsewhere when we move forward. So partnerships both within the public sector and between the public sector and the private sector are our answer to lack of capacity, which will also deal with another major problem, which is infrastructure, water and sanitation infrastructure in the country. We've been dealing in the past few days with water disruption in Mangaung, which unfortunately ended up taking the life of one of the workers of Bloom Water as a water board. And our sympathies to the employee, and we'll still convey our sympathies formally once we have received all the details. It points to what municipalities also pointed to, that they lose no less than 40% of water to the ground, and that is uppermost in our call for partnerships, and in terms of attention, in terms of supplying water to communities in a reliable way. Because if you have leaking infrastructure, if you have asbestos, old infrastructure all over the country, there's no way you will ever succeed in supplying reliable water to communities. And therefore, as part of ensuring reliable water supply to communities, we will be dealing with infrastructure. It just requires attention because most municipalities don't budget for infrastructure refurbishment or replacement. Even those that do, there's very little budget to that, as opposed to the state of water infrastructure that we have at the moment in all the municipalities out there. We're dedicated to this cause, and we will be attending to it. That's why it is important that we synergize our understanding from local up to national, so that when we make interventions as a National Water Department, we do it with understanding and with the involvement of everybody. We are not replacing anyone, but we have to intervene in this regard, especially because even when we look at what has been happening in the past, we don't seem to get a lot of joy in terms of the kind of expenditure that is being made on water. If you compare it with what has been delivered, and what is and compare it with the deficit. There is high expenditure, there is high demand remaining, but there's very low delivery of water, and something is not tallying up. And it is for this reason that we have taken water supply to the fore and giving it all our attention. Thank you.
We have the last questions from the virtual platforms. The first one asks, it's from Alex Mitchley, News 24. Are we currently in crisis in terms of the availability of water? The second question, earlier this month, the ANC councillor in Laudium said that Groundwater had been throttling the suburb, water throttling the suburb. Can you confirm this? What is the issue? How widespread is the issue, and what is being done to resolve the issue? The last question, could the Minister please explain the reasons behind the decline in both water quality and quantity? I'm not particularly sure if DDG Manas might potentially respond to that third question, but those are the three questions, Minister. Okay, how many questions do you have, Minister? Apparently there are a few questions, but... Okay, 3 questions? Yes.
First question is from Lambi from Market for 2024. Can you get more clarity on what are the penalties for water pollution? And the question from Estelle from the News Market. Is the Minister satisfied that a plan is in place now to address drinking water quality in the Eastern Cape? And the last question from Ricky Mizimahia from the Citizen. Hammanskraal has had a water crisis for the longest time. Is it a scarcity problem or just bad management? And what is the department doing to deal with Hammanskraal lack of access to water services? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Minister.
Thank you. We have agreed with the two gentlemen, the DG and the acting DG, that were all at work. They will answer to some questions. I'll answer one question. That is, I'll answer two, where you are talking about crisis, for the first question that was asked and the one that you are raising. And DG will take other questions together with Manas on causes of pollution and quality. We want to state here, and I hope that we will be reaching lots and lots of people, and including the ones that have asked this question. We don't have water crisis in the country at the moment. We don't have. That is referring to availability of water in the country. This is best illustrated, among other things, by the fact that during this rainy season, most of the dams in the country are overflowing. And one newspaper captured it by saying, dams are full, but taps are dry. It illustrates very clearly what's happening, so that you don't have a crisis of no water in your dams or in your rivers. But I want to distinguish between this general statement and some areas where you could say there's a difficulty here. We have recently gone to Gqeberha as an example. That is Port Elizabeth, 2 weeks ago. There the dams are at 15% full, or rather 15% empty, not full. And this was clearly confirmed even by the municipality in our presence. and we all took a collective view that we have a problem in that part of the country. It also affects some parts of Sarah Bartman, but at least Sarah Bartman is a little bit better than Gqeberha itself, as I say, 15% full. It was for this reason that a concept, the concept of a long-range pipe was conceived some time ago, and it's now at completion and will be handed over in July this year. But in March, at the end of this month, we will be receiving the first drop of water from that scheme. Now, that is a great relief in the sense that it will add 70 megaliters to the current supply of water in that area. And we are encouraging the mayor and the council to look at more, and we ourselves are looking at more ways of augmenting water in that particular city and the surroundings. That is what is happening. There could be one or two other examples where water is very, very, very scarce. Otherwise, general, I mean, in Mpumalanga we have 26 dams all in all, and there's only one that is about 45, I think 45%. All of them, all the others are full. And all the other dams in the country are full and overflowing. So you cannot say you have great difficulty, you have intense difficulty, and therefore crisis when you have such a situation at the moment. But what do we have, therefore? What is the how do we describe what is being experienced by various communities at reticulate our difficulty in reticulating what it's a management issue, and we say over a long period that there's tended to be focus by the department, our department, to water resource management and bulk water supply, as opposed to reticulating water to communities. This is what is now receiving our attention, especially after the summit. That is why we are talking about, apart from key infrastructure projects, that is big infrastructure projects, we are also focusing on key schemes in the country. There is schemes like those involving Flag Boshielo, which will be a scheme taking water up to Mokopane and up to Polokwane on the other hand, but also focusing on Dihuop, taking water via Ebenezer and so on, but also looking at Nandoni down to Mopane and reticulating to all the communities in Guyana. Those are quite big schemes, but in Limpopo. But you also have to look at another scheme, which is a big scheme in Harep in the Free State. That will be a dependable water scheme to bloom, and we're advancing with that particular scheme. And a number of others throughout the country, apart from Noord Gedacht that I spoke about in Gqeberha. So everywhere we in all the provinces and districts, there are major schemes that are underway, and therefore it's more of an issue of management over time than availability of water. Of course, we're not going to detach our eye from ensuring that water is always available via mega and big schemes like the Lesotho Highlands water scheme. We are going to continue with those. But at the same time, equally, attend to reticulation to communities and households, and then to business, which has been lagging behind over a long time. Now, to you, as a community, if you don't have water, like Mawutse community, for instance, which is another scheme that we're giving attention to, the low scope scheme that will supply water both to Mpumalanga and to Sekhukhune communities. If you haven't been supplied with water, you call it whatever name. It's a shortage, it's a crisis, it's a problem, it's a failure. You call it whatever name that will describe the way you feel at that particular moment. And we're working with communities, and we're upping our game in terms of responding finally to all these issues, including in Maluta Pofung, including in the Northwest, all of those communities that have been clamoring and airing their grievance. We are attending to those matters. Thank you very much. DG?
Thank you, Minister. As indicated by the Minister, the water shortages in some areas which have been in the media recently could be caused by a couple of reasons. The Minister has covered the one reason, and that is that in certain parts of the country, despite the fact that there's been heavy rainfall, there are particular climatic conditions which have resulted in those particular areas, such as the area around Gqeberha, being short of water, and the dams in Gqeberha are at still a very low level, whereas the rest of the dams in the country are all full or near full. But in the other areas, particularly in the Rand water areas where there have been water shortages, it has not been due to a shortage of water supply or water resources. It's rather been due to repairs and maintenance being carried out. Now, those repairs and maintenance can be of various types. One is normal planned repairs and maintenance, and Rand Water, like any water utility, has to do that on occasion. And the key issue there is good communication to the public, to inform the public timelessly when they have to do repairs which are going to mean that there's going to be no water supply for a period, and they need to keep that period as short as possible, but sometimes it does run to a few days. And secondly, there can be unanticipated breakdowns. And the most recent ones in the south of Joburg were unanticipated breakdowns with regard to some of Rand Water's pumping equipment. And as a result of that, the reservoir levels, the levels of water in the reservoirs in the south of Johannesburg in particular became very low, and water had to be restricted, and some areas were out of water for a few days. A third reason why this occurs around the country is vandalism and theft, which is a particular problem that we have to deal with, and that people are stealing parts of waterworks or pumping equipment or cables, and that is resulting in the systems going down and repairs being required, which results in temporary shortages of water for communities. Thank you. Leonardo will talk to the issues of water quality.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, DG. From my side, I just wanted to add quickly to the question and also regarding Hammanskraal, and actually make an example of that in terms of the linkage on the question between quantity and quality. We have a situation in the Apis River that is actually the source of Hammanskraal, because there's timber works in Hammanskraal that actually has adequate capacity at this point in time to provide water to the area. However, in terms of the intense pollution that is happening in the Apis River because of the Rooiwal wastewater treatment works that's upstream, managed by Tshwane municipalities, actually finding it quite difficult to actually just discharge water at this point in time that complies with a compliance certificate or the authorization that's given to them. The department has been working with them in that regard to turn the matter around, and at this point in time, Urwat, which is a municipal-owned entity from Ekurhuleni municipality, is also assisting in that regard with the organization or the collaboration that the department has executed there as part of its regulatory function to ensure that the turnaround is actually happening there. That will help the timber water treatment works to actually increase its capacity, because currently, as it stands, the water treatment works is not capable of treating that water to the standard which actually be acceptable for human consumption. So there is a clear indication in terms of the linkage between water quality and quantity. But in terms of the quality part, let me quickly go into that part. As far as the wastewater treatment works is concerned in the country, we know that the picture is not as it's supposed to be. The Minister will be releasing the Green Drop report soon. And in the Green Drop report, we will not try to restate the problem and just to say what is wrong or where it is wrong, as expected, but also to diagnose the problem in terms of saying how we can, and it can inform the plan to say how we can actually then sustainably turn around it. Because all of the 144 water service authorities that were audited through this plan, not all of them have a common problem. And that is what we're going to look into. And so with the release of that report, we are also in concurrently already working very hard in determining the criteria also for the Blue Drop, which will be looking at the water quality side from a drinking water perspective. Because there is at this point in time quite a difference as far as how municipalities are looking after the drinking water than what they're looking after the wastewater, because obviously drinking water is in the sight of people, while wastewater is not. And I guess that is the reason why there is a difference in terms of the way that it's being managed. There has been recently also some reports in terms of the quality, where certain media or social media have actually expressed certain judgment according to which areas where water should not be trusted, which has not always been correct, scientifically correct. And the one area I want to attach would be the Nelson Mandela Bay area, where there has been problems. And the problems is drought related, because the municipality for 7 years had no opportunity, because of the low levels that they've been experiencing for the past 7 years in their water resources. They had no opportunity to scour their reservoirs. And the reason for that would be that if you scour a reservoir, you lose a large amount of water. And they couldn't do that because, unfortunately, they had no opportunity to do so due to the low levels. And that has actually animated into a situation where the mug or the turbid lower levels of the reservoir has actually, through the turbulence that's experienced when the water is low, has actually found its entrance into the tap water. And that's why discolored water or highly turbid water has actually found its way into the taps of the people in Nelson Mandela Bay metro area. This, however, has not necessarily meant that there was bacterial contamination of that water, but rather a total coliforms which is more organic of nature. And that has been proven also by the laboratory results that was proven to the department. There was a question in terms of we just wanted to reiterate the issue that the National Council for Communicable Diseases have actually expressed itself in terms of the typhoid situation also in the country, that even though the cases are elevated, it's not to the extent where we can actually point the causative factor to be drinking water. There was also a question with regards to the penalties that need to be that should be in place, and we just wanted to point that fact into it, that even though our primary legislation, which is the National Water Act in that regard, doesn't pinpoint a value in terms of penalty, the department has already started piloting its waste discharge charge system in the VAL system. And what we've done there, even though we've generated bills to R0 at this point in time, it was just to finalize ourselves and our readiness to ensure that we're scientifically correct in our approach. But we will, in our July season, when we always do our annual consultation of the raw water tariffs, we will be able to then also do a consultation in terms of that, so that we can be ready for implementation in that regard as well. We have the support of our Water Research Commission to assist us on that, and we are also engaging with our sister department, which is the department who's taking responsibility for the National Environmental Management Act, so that we can also work in collaboration with them to catch to that point. I think that I've covered the questions. So that's from me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, the Minister and the Director General are due to address the Strategic Partners Network event. At this point, I would like to thank the Minister, the Director General, and the Acting Deputy Director General for the attendance and participation. And thank you as well to you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Welcome.